Ugly Dolls, An Imperfect Adventure. Well, that's saying it lightly. I have never seen 1 second of the movie or ever seen these dolls for sale anywhere, so I went into this totally blind. I love reviewing games you might not expect to be good, and this from the previews I saw looked like it could be a somewhat fun open world platformer. And I was wrong. It wasn't fun, but that's because of the baffling choices the creators made when it came to the gameplay. So this is based on a doll series which is almost 20 years old, amazingly. The story is about a bunch of robots who accidentally find themselves in Uglyville. Your character needs to find a way to get rid of them in the most insane ways, like the idea of freezing them and pushing them out of town. However, to do that, it's just a bunch of needless steps because nothing is straightforward in this title. The world is just a bunch of buildings with the occasional pond or maze. You send out balloons to fill out your map and find objectives. You have to craft them with the materials that are all over the place. It was the laziest way to do an open world. Just the same types of buildings over and over again. It was just baffling. Why not build out your town better? Have some flow to it. Not make it look like you were just planning it by throwing darts at a board. Now don't expect to know where you are at any time, because the map is terrible. It doesn't zoom out enough and basically everywhere looks the same. You can always die to go back to your home base, so it's really not that big of a deal. It's just annoying on how little effort was made to make you a world that you'd want to explore. Then when you finish all the things you need to do, you go back to your home base and you go back out into the world again and it's completely changed. The maps are all blanked out again and you basically have to figure it out once again. What, did the world change in the 2 seconds I was gone? Believe it or not, while I was researching this game to figure out what ugly dolls were, I found out the answer. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. It's a procedurally generated world. This wasn't really that easy to find. Not even Nintendo's description had this. I found it on a random website. It was like all the puzzle pieces finally fit. That's why the world is so shitty. It's literally changing the world every time you go into it. And that sucks. I personally hate procedurally generated worlds, as I've never seen one that I enjoyed. I understand the thought behind it, as you have a different playthrough every time. But to me, it's annoying not having a good flowing world to explore, and just kind of throwing dice and hoping you land on something that doesn't look awful. This should have never been procedurally generated. The world is a cluster of the same building and simple repetitive gameplay. Why make it more annoying by randomizing it? As you go through the game, you'll collect buttons, and every 100 you can turn in for a new crafting option. And I do believe all of those were optional. Now there are required crafting items that you get through the story mode, but you really should get the optional crafting items, as I got them all and I really did speed through the missions because of it. In the story mode, you have to find random objects that will help you get rid of the robots, and they'll always be signified by a slightly different colored coin from the button. It felt like a placeholder item that they just never changed out. I guess they were thinking, why bother animating what we're looking for when a generic item will work just fine? Now you might be saying, why did you play this longer than 10 minutes if you disliked it so much? It is hard to say. I did enjoy the characters. They had a very sarcastic and fun attitude. Most of the cutscenes were voiced, which is a good thing because this is a kid's game. But it was odd that it was not all voiced. Why not fully voice this? Then younger kids can enjoy this. And younger kids is probably the age range for this. It does get a little bit difficult towards the end of the game, but since you can't really die and just go back to the main hub with no penalty other than that, it's not going to be too hard for kids. There is a 2-player mode in this, but since no one in this household wants to play it with me, I couldn't test it. It really didn't feel like a 2-player type of game, but if you really want to do it, there is that option. Ugly Dolls, An Imperfect Adventure is not a great game, or even a good one. It's too bad because with a few tweaks here and there, this could have been way better. Get rid of the procedurally generated stuff and actually make a world people would want to explore and find secrets in. Let kids see the places they watch in the movies and the TV shows that they like. It's the biggest failing in this whole thing. Plus, like I mentioned, any kids game should be fully voiced. It feels like a no-brainer, but you'd be shocked on how often this doesn't happen. Now, this is definitely a game you should skip. There really isn't anything kids might find fun in this. While the controls were a bit loose, they were easy enough for kids to handle. But the confusing open world and the sort of boring missions will most likely drive them away from this fairly quickly. So I would just skip this.